Greetings, friends. Welcome to CTUCC ConferenceCast for September 5th, 2013, the regular podcast of the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ. Whoever you are, and wherever you may be on life's journey at this very moment, you are welcome here. We begin this week's conference cast with this meditation from Karen Ziel, Minister of Faith Formation. In the 25th chapter of Proverbs, the author advises us not to exalt ourselves in the presence of the king, because it is better that he say to you, "Come up here," than to be demoted before a ruler. And in the 14th chapter of Luke, Jesus says much the same, though he's talking about the host of a wedding banquet, not a king. He concludes by adding that when you're hosting a dinner, don't invite those who will ask you to dinner in return. Invite those who can't repay you, and you will be blessed.
In my formative years, to say another you'd met or encountered was down to earth was a simple compliment. I took the phrase to mean that an individual was grounded, knew their purpose, or could find joy in achievement without pride or ego. Lessons in humility often sting. They go right to the core of the soul. I have from time to time found my ego in conflict with my best self, and have been stung by my own temptation to think I was somehow superior. A lesson in humility is a lesson one remembers. Conversely, when I've been an authentic servant leader in a role or in my vocation, the leader God has equipped and prepared me to be, I've found joy in the act of serving and joy in unexpected moments of self-revelation. Labor Day is more than a Monday off. Labor Day can be a time to remember God's lessons of humility in the service of others, as suggested in this week's lections. It is a moment to remember that all work, any work, done purposefully and authentically, is to be valued. It is an opportunity to recognize that we are to value the individual performing the work, regardless of place or station in our society. Lest we forget, we have not achieved that vision of living God's kingdom, where place or station in the community is deemed irrelevant and all are valued equally. Yet we can each do our part purposefully and well. We must be mindful of the spirit of another and careful not to trample or diminish that spirit in our own pursuit of ego or achievement. Rather, we must bear in mind that by affirming the work of, or by serving the needs of another, we become more whole. As I get closer to the earth in my own backyard, as I plant and pluck and tend, I'm reminded of the important work done by those who plant and harvest my food. As I offer myself to my local congregation by volunteering, I'm reminded that sometimes leadership looks like pulling weeds or preparing snacks. I hope someday it can be said of me, she was down to earth. Here is a prayer for this week. O God, who formed and is forming us, remind us of our common humanity and our common purpose as your loving people. Grace our labors with the goodness of our gifts, yet mindful of the gifts of all. Enliven our service with our unique commitment, yet mindful of the commitment of all. Amen.
In the news this week, schools are back in session, and in the next couple of weeks, our local churches will pick up the pace as the summer vacation season ends. Sunday school programs will resume, and reading groups and prayer shawl knitting circles and all manner of ministries. But before we go plunging into all that, we're going to take a few minutes in this podcast to recall all that happened this summer, because it certainly was a busy one. In May, we appealed for support after deadly tornadoes struck near Oklahoma City. In June, the Reverend Tamara Torres, associate pastor at South Congregational Church UCC in Granby, went to work with the region's Episcopal Diocese to help local congregations in the area as they worked with their grieving homeless neighbors. The churches that already have a habit of serving others, she says, are the ones to which people will turn. And they are the ones whose members have accustomed their minds and hearts to responding. On the first Sunday in June, worshipers at the First Congregational Church UCC of East Hartford went to stand outside the door or lean out the open windows just 5 minutes after the service began. There they cheered and waved at the hundreds of motorcyclists passing the building, participants in the charity Brian Azelton Memorial Motorcycle Run. And then came the 29th General Synod of the United Church of Christ, with nearly 3,000 people from all over the nation and all over the world making their way to Long Beach, California. To get a sense of it all, make sure to check out our 12-minute video, co-produced by myself and young adult delegate Nicole Bernier. You'll find that on our YouTube channel. And if you're pressed for time, there's General Synod in 100 Words, which made its premiere here on ConferenceCast. Later in July, Second Congregational Church UCC in New London made a bold move to Waterford, handing over their building to another congregation and moving to share quarters with a Presbyterian church. Church leaders believe that their ministry can be revitalized without the burden imposed by their previous 19th century stone structure. In the quiet corner, two churches in Woodstock held their 8th Compassion Camp, a week of service and reflection for young people. This year, participants focused on earth care with projects ranging from garden weeding to animal care at Heifer Farm. And at Silver Lake, hundreds of young people found their lives changed by their week in God's backyard. Some of those conferees were good enough to share their thoughts about how God was making them new and how God was renewing the world around them. Check those videos out. As summer ended, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And we look ahead to the programs of the Sacred Conversations on Race Ministry here in the Connecticut Conference. At First Church of Christ UCC in Middletown, they reached out to the local NAACP to begin their own conversations on race in both private and public settings. And friends, that was just some of what happened around this conference this summer. So for those stories and for all the current headlines, make sure to visit us at ctucc.org/news. Well, with fall upon us, there's a lot coming up. So you ready? Get set. Go! Learn about implementing a season of generosity, a new approach to stewardship, presented by Patsy Burling on September 7th in North Haven. And come back to North Haven on September 19th to join us in celebrating the ministry of Mike Penstra, our retiring South Central Regional Minister. That's in North Haven on September 19th. CT Women of the UCC hold their fall retreat at Silver Lake September 20th and 21st. The Reverend Dr. Kirk Byron Jones will help authorized ministers, Christian educators, and church musicians get free refills, some real time off, during General Association, which runs September 22nd through 24th at Silver Lake. The registration deadline is coming up. It's September 13th, so get that done soon. On September 26th, meet some of the members of the Still Speaking Writers Group in Hartford. And on September 28th, we will gather to install the Reverend Kent J. Salati as conference minister at First Church of Christ UCC in Glastonbury. Celebrate, debrief, and plan for the next Mission for One Earth on October 5th in Cheshire. The Women's Spirit Retreat runs October 18th through 20th at Silver Lake. And you can find materials for this fall's annual meeting, which will be held October 18th and 19th in Hartford, and which features the Reverend Kent Salati and the Reverend Mike Piazza, online at ctucc.org/annual meeting. Registration is open for the 2013 and 14 series of confirmation retreats, bringing together young people who are considering a commitment to their local churches at Silver Lake Conference Center. The second weekend is already full, so be sure to learn more, select dates, and get those registrations in at ctucc.org/conf-retreats. And you can always learn more about what's coming up in the Connecticut Conference by visiting us at ctucc.org/events. And that brings this ConferenceCast to a close. Thanks to Karen Ziel for her reflection, and to GarageBand for our music. Primary funding for ConferenceCast comes from your congregation's gifts to our church's wider mission, basic support, changing lives through the United Church of Christ. This is Eric Anderson, the Minister of Communications and Technology for the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ, praying that your days this week may be filled with the presence, the guidance, and the grace of God.